He left me in the driveway, with our kids crying in the back seat. The taillights disappeared into the night. He took the car like he was taking control. One last time. No goodbye, no fight, just the sound of tires spinning away. I stood there, barefoot on the porch, holding my son's backpack, my daughter's doll clutched to my chest. And that's when I realized he thought he'd won. But while he drove off with horsepower, I stayed behind with something stronger. Paperwork, custody filings, title deeds. Now I sleep in the master bedroom. My kids are safe in their bunk beds. The dog lies beside me, snoring like a guardian. And Jason, he's living out of a motel, still trying to figure out how he lost everything but a steering wheel. The night he left, it wasn't storming, it wasn't dramatic. No thunder, no lightning, just silence. Jason didn't pack a suitcase. He didn't even look me in the eye. He picked up his keys from the kitchen counter, grabbed his phone, and without a single word walked out the door. I remember standing there in my fuzzy socks, holding a half-filled baby bottle, watching his back like I was watching something die. He didn't slam the door. That would have required emotion. He just shut it. Soft, final. The kids were in the playroom, fighting over a plastic dinosaur. Max, our golden retriever, looked at me then at the door and whined. He knew. Dogs always know. I stepped outside, barefoot. It was cold. Not icy. Just that kind of cold that crawls into your bones. He started the engine. Headlights flashed. And then I heard his voice, one last time. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He said, "This house was never really yours anyway." And then the car rolled away. I didn't cry, not at first. I just stood there, trying to replay what I could have done wrong. Maybe I folded the laundry wrong. Maybe I forgot to text him something. Maybe I just wasn't enough. The truth is, I hadn't been enough for Jason in years, but I was too busy keeping our family alive to notice. He had checked out long before he drove away that night. The car was just his final exit. He took the newest thing we had, our leased SUV. The one I chose because it had enough space for both car seats and the stroller. He took it like it was a trophy. Like the house, the kids, the dog meant nothing, like they were the leftovers. I went back inside. The floor creaked beneath my feet. The baby bottle was still warm in my hand. And all I could think about was how quiet the house had become. That night, I tucked the kids in bed alone. My daughter asked, "Is Daddy coming back?" I smiled, lied. Of course he is, baby. Then I crawled into the bed we used to share, pulled the sheets to my chin, and stared at the ceiling until the sun rose. The next morning, the rumors started. "Oh, I saw Jason at the bar with someone new. Did you hear? He's been renting an apartment downtown." You poor thing. He really took the car and left you with the kids. The neighbors were kind in that overly polite, nosy kind of way. But the worst part wasn't the gossip. It was how everyone acted like he had taken something small. "It's just a car. Emily, you've still got the house. Hey, at least he didn't take the kids." They didn't get it. He didn't just take the car. He took the last thread of control he had. He took the one thing that still worked in our lives. He took the machine that made school runs and doctor visits possible. And he knew exactly what he was doing. That wasn't an accident. That was war. I didn't cry. Not when I saw the empty driveway. Not when Max waited by the door every night for a week. Not even when I found Jason's hoodie still hanging in the hall closet. Instead, I started making calls. To my mom, to the daycare, to the family lawyer I met at a PTA meeting 2 years ago. I wasn't going to beg him to come back. I wasn't going to scream in a parking lot or throw his clothes on the lawn. I was going to take something back. Something bigger than a car. And I was going to do it quietly, piece by piece, with a paper trail. Because if Jason wanted to start a war, he just chose the wrong general to fight. It's just a car. Emily. I heard that sentence at least 17 times in the first 2 weeks. From the daycare teacher who meant well. From the neighbor who waved with pity from across the cul-de-sac. From my own cousin, who once gave her boyfriend a second chance after he pawned her engagement ring. Just a car. I smiled, nodded, pretended they were right. But deep down, I knew they were blind. They didn't see what the car really meant. It wasn't about 4 wheels and a steering wheel. It was about power. Jason didn't leave me to be free. He left me to feel stuck, stationary, dependent. That SUV was the last piece of control I had over our day-to-day life. Without it, I had to text my mom to drive us to school. I had to beg a coworker for a ride to the grocery store. I had to cancel job interviews because I couldn't get across town. He knew that. Jason may not have been a good husband, but he was strategic. And this was a calculated blow. But what he didn't expect was that I would get quiet. Not broken, not loud, just quiet. The kind of quiet that moves like a current, slow, steady, and always forward. I sat at the kitchen table one night, papers spread everywhere, a lukewarm cup of tea next to my elbow, my laptop open to the county court's self-help page. And I started planning. The kids were asleep, Max was curled at my feet, and I was becoming someone new, someone dangerous. The first step was the lawyer. Her name was Deborah Fields. She lived 3 blocks away in a 2-story with a wind chime that never stopped. She used to volunteer at the kids' school, helping single moms understand custody paperwork. I called her, told her everything. Every cold silence, every skipped dinner, every credit card bill Jason had hidden in his office drawer. She listened, didn't interrupt. Then she said, "You're going to need documentation, evidence, a timeline." So that's what I built. While other moms were making scrapbooks, I was compiling a binder of betrayal. Receipts, texts, photos of him with her at the new brunch place downtown. It wasn't rage fueling me. It was something colder, sharper. Resolve. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted security for my children. I wanted that house. Not because it was pretty, not because of the memories, because it was mine, because I kept it warm, because I paid the bills, because it was where my kids felt safe. Jason thought he could just leave, and I'd crumble. But each day, I grew stronger in the silence. I made lists, scheduled consultations, read state laws on equitable division like it was bedtime reading. When he called once, late at night, probably drunk, he said, "We'll figure it out. I'll send money when I can." I didn't say a word. Just let the silence stretch until he hung up. He sent $100 a week later, then nothing. But I didn't chase. Because by then, I had learned a truth no one had told me. You can rebuild without closure. You can fight without yelling. You can win without telling them you're playing. One Saturday morning, while the kids were with my mom, I went downtown. Hairbrushed, lipstick on, wearing the only pair of heels Jason hadn't thrown shade at. I stepped into the family court office like I belonged there. Because I did, filed the first motion for legal separation, requested emergency custody, listed financial abandonment, attached proof of his absence. The clerk read it all in silence, stamped the paper, and said, "You're stronger than most." I didn't feel strong, not yet, but I walked out with a folder in hand and a storm brewing in my chest. Jason didn't reply for 2 weeks. When he did, it was with a smug voicemail. "You're overreacting. This doesn't have to be messy." I saved the message, added it to the binder. Messy. He left me with no transportation and 2 kids. He left Max without his evening walks. He left our bills unpaid, our routines shattered. Messy had already happened. I wasn't creating chaos. I was creating order. Weeks passed. Deborah and I met every Thursday at 3 p.m. We practiced court scripts, built arguments, filed motions. She warned me custody battles aren't easy, especially if he decides to fight. But Jason didn't want the fight. He just wanted to win by absence. And absence is easy to prove. One night, as I was tucking in the kids, my son said, "Mommy, can Max come sleep in my room? I think he misses Daddy." I paused, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Max is right where he belongs." Then I walked to the kitchen, opened a drawer, and pulled out the key Jason thought I'd lost. To the lockbox. Inside his hidden statements, a copy of the car lease signed only by me. He didn't even legally put his name on it. More evidence. By the time our first court date was scheduled, I was ready. I had learned how to stand taller, speak slower, let silence work in my favor. Jason didn't show. His lawyer did, young, arrogant, ill-prepared. Mine calm, composed, lethal. We presented facts, not feelings. And when the judge looked at me and asked, "Do you believe your home is the best environment for your children?" I didn't blink. "Yes, Your Honor." Because even though he took the car, I never stopped driving forward. 2 days later, Jason showed up. No call, no warning. He pulled into the driveway with the same car he'd taken that night. Except this time, it was filthy. Empty fast food bags in the back seat. a crack in the windshield, and the smell like cheap cologne and exhaustion. He knocked once, then again, louder. I opened the door just enough for him to see I was calm. "Hey," he said, "can we talk?" I looked over my shoulder. The kids were on the couch, cartoons playing, Max asleep at their feet. "No," I said, "we're past talking." He scoffed. "Emily, don't do this!" The car was all I had. "And you made your choice," I cut in. He leaned against the doorframe, trying to look casual, but he looked tired, hollow. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked. I didn't flinch. "Somewhere that doesn't have my name on the mailbox." Then I closed the door, locked it, went back to my kids, to my dog, to my home. That night, I stood by the bedroom window, watching the SUV drive away again, and I didn't feel broken. I felt done. Jason had taken the car to escape, but I had taken everything else to rebuild, and in the silence that followed, I finally heard peace knocking. I started smiling more. Not because I was happier, but because I finally had a plan. Jason didn't come back after that night at the door. Not really. He called twice, one missed call, one voicemail I didn't bother opening, then silence again. The kind of silence that used to scare me. Now, I wore it like armor. Each morning became a ritual. Get the kids dressed, feed Max, brew the same week coffee. Then, after the last lunchbox was zipped, I sat at the kitchen table, my war table, and studied. Court documents, child custody rulings, property laws. I read everything like it was survival, because it was. People say knowledge is power, but they forget it's also protection. And I needed protection. From him, from his negligence, from a system that too often gave men like Jason the benefit of the doubt. Deborah guided me through the maze. We weren't just reacting anymore, we were preparing. She helped me file for primary custody. We requested financial discovery. We documented everything: when he missed visitation, when he didn't send support, when the kids cried themselves to sleep asking why he hadn't called. One Thursday, Deborah leaned forward across her oak desk and said something I'll never forget. "Silence can be your greatest witness." And I understood. Jason's silence was no longer painful. It was evidence. The court date was set, a full hearing, division of assets, custody. I bought a cheap blazer from the thrift store, navy blue with slightly worn cuffs. I wore it like armor, too. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom. Not my friends. I wanted no distractions, no sympathy. Just results. The morning of the hearing, I stood in front of the mirror. My eyes looked tired, but steady. I whispered to my reflection, "You are the storm he never saw coming." The courthouse in Ada County smelled like paperwork and floor polish. I clutched my binder, the one Deborah called the Bible, and walked in alone. Jason was already there. He looked smaller, paler, wearing the same suit he wore to his cousin's wedding, only now the sleeves hung loose. He didn't look at me. His lawyer did, young again, still smug. We took our seats. The judge, an older woman with sharp glasses and sharper eyes, asked us to begin. Deborah stood. Her voice was calm, almost bored. She didn't speak in anger. She spoke in receipts. "This is the lease document for the vehicle Mr. Myers took. This is the log of missed support payments. These are screenshots of text messages where he acknowledged leaving the residence." Every time Jason shifted in his seat, I felt stronger. Because I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was winning. Then came my testimony. I stood, swore an oath, and told the truth quietly, steadily. I have been the primary caregiver for our children for over 7 years. I have maintained the household. I have documented every interaction. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for stability. The judge asked, "Do you feel your children are safe with their father?" I hesitated. Not for drama, for truth. My children love their father, but he hasn't shown up. Not in the ways that matter. Jason looked up then, but I didn't meet his eyes. Because I wasn't speaking to him. I was speaking for my children. For Max? For myself. Deborah handed over the final folder, our proposal. Primary custody to me. Visitation supervised. The house awarded to me under marital equity due to sole occupancy and parental necessity. And then the judge ruled, all motions granted. My breath didn't catch. My knees didn't buckle. I just closed my binder and whispered, "It's done." Jason didn't stay after the hearing. Didn't argue, didn't protest. He walked out. This time without a car, without a case, without power. I stepped into the sunlight and felt the weight shift off my shoulders. but it wasn't over. Winning in court is one thing. Living with victory is another, because the next few weeks were heavy. The kids asked questions. My daughter drew a picture of a house with just 3 people. Max kept sitting by the window. And every time the doorbell rang, my heart jumped. But slowly, things settled. I changed the locks, painted the hallway. I even bought a used bicycle for grocery trips. Because independence, real independence, is built in pieces. One lock, one coat of paint, one ride at a time. Then came the letter, typed cold, from Jason's lawyer. He wanted weekend visits. He wanted shared holidays. He wanted the dog. The dog. I read that part twice. Then I laughed. Not out of bitterness. Out of disbelief. He didn't ask for the kids. He didn't ask for therapy. He asked for Max. Like Max was an object. Like he hadn't abandoned him too. I called Deborah. She laughed too. We'll draft a response, she said. 1 sentence should do. And it did. Max is a dependent member of the custodial household. Request denied. Simple, sharp, final. Just like Jason's goodbye had been. I put the letter in the binder, filed it behind the court order. Then I made dinner, real dinner, for the first time in weeks. Lasagna, garlic bread, laughter. The kids helped set the table. Max laid under the counter, tail thumping. That night, we ate like a family. A smaller one. A stronger one. Later, as I washed dishes, my daughter came up behind me and hugged my waist. I like it better now, Mommy, she said. It's quieter, but happy. And in that moment, I realized something. He took the car, but I took everything that mattered. And I wasn't giving any of it back. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because of stress, not because of fear, but because something inside me had shifted. I no longer dreaded the silence in the house. I welcomed it. I brewed coffee, let it sit, opened the back door and stepped outside. The air was cool, the sky soft with morning light. Max followed, sat beside me on the porch, his head resting against my knee. I realized then we were safe. Not perfect, not whole, but safe. I started making new routines. Saturday pancakes, Thursday library visits. The kids began to sleep deeper. They laughed louder. The weight in their little shoulders began to lift. And mine, too. One evening, while folding laundry, I found one of Jason's old t-shirts at the bottom of the basket, the kind he wore to mow the lawn, back when he still pretended to care. I paused, held it, then tossed it in a donation box without a second thought, because memories aren't anchors. They're lessons. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was him. Can we meet? I want to talk. No lawyers. I stared at the screen. Then I turned it off. I didn't need closure from him. I didn't need apologies whispered under breath. What I needed, what I had built, was already around me. My children, my home, my quiet reclaimed life. That night, I stood at the window again, the same window I had once cried beneath, and I whispered, to no one in particular. He took the car, but I took the journey, and that journey was just beginning. I didn't expect him to come back. Not after the court ruling, not after the silence. But one Thursday afternoon, I saw the SUV again. It was parked across the street, half in the shade, engine running. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some other man in some other car. But then I saw him, Jason, leaning back in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, pretending like he belonged. I stood at the window, holding a plate I'd just dried. I didn't move, didn't blink. He stayed there for maybe 10 minutes, then drove away. Didn't knock, didn't call, just watched, like a ghost. The next day, I changed the gate code. Then the locks, again. I installed a security camera, the kind with night vision and cloud storage. Not because I was afraid, because I wanted a record. When someone shows you what they're capable of, believe them. He had taken the car once to make me feel powerless. I wasn't going to let him take my peace. Deborah told me, he's testing the boundary. Don't give him room. So I didn't answer his texts. I didn't entertain the guilt trips. The half-hearted, I missed the kids' messages. If he missed them, he knew where the courthouse was. And yet something about his silence changed. It became louder. He stopped asking for the dog. Stopped asking for holidays. Now he wanted something else. Control. He started spreading rumors, telling his family that I'd poisoned the kids against him, telling our old friends that I'd manipulated the courts. I got a message from an old college roommate, Emily. Is it true you used your job to spy on him? What job? I was barely working since the separation. But lies are like roaches, they don't need truth to multiply. At first it hurt. Then it fueled me. I wrote down every false accusation, every misquoted message, every attempt to paint me as unstable. It all went into the binder. And then came the court summons. He had filed for modification, requested a revision of custody, claimed he was in a better place now and ready to be a present father. I laughed when I read it, not a bitter laugh. A clear, open-throated laugh of someone who knew exactly how the game was played. He hadn't called the kids in 6 weeks. Hadn't paid a cent in child support in 2 months. Hadn't even sent a birthday card. But he was ready now. The judge wasn't amused. During the hearing, he showed up in a new suit. His lawyer had been replaced this one older, slicker, more theatrical. They tried to paint me as overprotective. Too controlling. Your Honor, his attorney said, my client simply wants to reestablish his role in the children's lives. Deborah stood up, didn't raise her voice. My client, she said, wants to protect her children from confusion, instability, and performative parenting. She handed the judge a folder. It contained timestamps, missed visits, voicemails, screenshots, and the kicker, an affidavit from our pediatrician noting emotional regressions every time Jason reappeared and disappeared. The judge reviewed it in silence, then asked Jason, "Where were you on your son's birthday?" Jason stammered, I meant to send something. And did you?" the judge asked. Jason looked down. No, Your Honor. There was no drama in the courtroom. No shouting. Just clarity. The ruling came quick. Motion denied. Custody unchanged. Visitation restricted until counseling completed. And once again, I left the courthouse not just victorious, but calm. Because real power doesn't shout. It documents, it prepares, it waits. The kids asked fewer questions about him now. Max stopped sitting by the window, and I stopped expecting closure. Instead, I found something better. Momentum. I picked up freelance work bookkeeping for local small businesses. I rejoined the PTA, not to make friends, but to build a presence. A quiet, steady presence that said, I'm here, I'm consistent, I'm not going anywhere. And one day he came back again, not to beg, not to threaten, to plead. He stood at my door with a box of toys. Old ones. Ones he hadn't touched in years. I thought they might want these, he said. I looked at the box, then at him, and I said the one sentence I'd waited months to say. You don't get to pop in and play father when it's convenient. He blinked. They're my kids too. No, I said, they were your kids. Now they're mine to raise. He left without a word. Left the box on the porch. I didn't bring it inside. I donated the toys the next morning. Because the kids didn't need reminders of broken promises. They needed consistency. They needed stability. They needed me. That night, as I was making dinner, my daughter came up and asked if I could braid her hair like the princess in her book. She used to ask him for things like that. Now she asked me. And I did it. Not perfectly, but with love. And that braid, it held, just like we did. Weeks passed. The quiet became normal. Not the kind that feels like abandonment, but the kind you earn. I started journaling again. Something I hadn't done in years. Not about him, about me. What I wanted, what I deserved, what I was becoming. One evening, I wrote this. He took the car, but I took the wheel. Because I did. I steered us through every storm he left behind. I taught the kids how to tie their shoes, bake banana bread, brush Max's golden coat. I didn't need him to complete our picture. We weren't broken, we were evolving. One Sunday, my son asked if we could go to the park, just us. No birthday, no reason, just us. We went, and we laughed. He fell in the mud, and I didn't have wipes. So we used napkins from the glove box and laughed harder. It wasn't picture perfect, but it was real. And real always wins. That night, I put the kids to bed and looked at the calendar. Our divorce was finalized that week. A date that once felt like an ending, now looked like freedom. I lit a candle, poured a glass of wine, and toasted the quiet victories. Not the kind that come with applause, the kind that come with peace, with security, with knowing I had turned wreckage into a home, a life, a legacy, not just for me, but for the 2 little humans who watched me rise every single day. And as I stood by the window once more, the porch light casting soft gold on the floor, I whispered, You lost a car, Jason? I found everything else. The day I knew I had won wasn't in a courtroom. It wasn't when the judge granted custody. It wasn't even when Jason's lawyer backed down with a sigh and a handshake. It was a Tuesday, cloudy, unremarkable, the kind of day most people forget. But I remember every second, because it was the day Jason came back, not for me, not for the kids, but for himself. He rang the doorbell at 4:12 p.m. I was helping my daughter with her science project. Max barked once, then went back to napping like nothing in the world could disturb his peace. I walked to the door, took a breath, and opened it just enough to look him in the eye. He looked older, not because of time, because of consequence. He held a manila envelope, worn at the corners. His hands trembled slightly. "I wanted to give you this," he said. I didn't take it. He looked down. "It's the title transfer. For the SUV. It's yours now. Officially." I didn't speak. I just waited. I started therapy," he added. "They said it might help if I made amends." The word felt foreign in his mouth, like he was trying it out for the first time. I studied him, not the way I used to, searching for signs of love or regret. This time, I was looking for sincerity, and I saw it faint, fragile, but real. Still, I didn't open the door any wider. "Thank you," I said simply. "You can leave it on the porch?" He blinked, then nodded. He placed the envelope down gently, like it was something sacred. And for once, he didn't ask for anything in return. No visit, no conversation, no redemption. He just turned, walked back to the car, and drove away. No slamming tires, no drama, just an ending. I picked up the envelope an hour later. Not because I needed the car, it had become more symbol than tool by then, but because it proved something I had known for a while. The story didn't end with his absence. It began with my presence. That evening, I stood in the garage, looked at the SUV clean now, the kids' soccer balls in the back, dog hair on the seats. Ours, not his, not stolen, claimed. I ran my fingers across the steering wheel and whispered, "You brought us pain, but now you'll bring us forward." The next weekend, we drove to the mountains. Just me, the kids, and Max. We laughed at the radio, sang terribly to throwback songs, ate gas station snacks like they were a gourmet buffet. The car didn't just carry us, it held our joy. And joy, I realized, is the ultimate revenge, because he expected me to break. But he expected anger, but I chose peace. He wanted to leave a scar, but I turned it into a story. At the summit, my son pointed at the view and said, "This feels like freedom." He didn't know how right he was. We stayed until sunset. No rush, no curfew, no waiting for someone else to lead. I was the driver now, of the car, of our life, of our future. And when we got back home, I parked it in the driveway. My driveway. Then I looked at the porch, freshly painted, newly planted flowers in bloom, and I smiled, because it was all ours. Not because I fought for it, but because I refused to lose. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not from Jason, from the state. The divorce was finalized. Paperwork complete. No more waiting. No more loose ends. It was done. I poured a glass of red wine, lit the last of the good candles, and sat in silence. Not the silence of abandonment. The silence of arrival. Max curled up by my feet. The kids were asleep upstairs, wrapped in blankets that smelled like clean laundry and dreams. And I thought, this is what survival looks like. Not loud, not violent. Steady, quiet, glorious. A week after that, Jason sent a message, not to me, to the kids. A simple voicemail. "I'm proud of you." My daughter showed it to me. I listened once, then deleted it, not out of malice, but because pride should be earned, and I had earned mine every single day since he left. In the tears I wiped, in the bills I paid, in the smiles I rebuilt from the rubble. I didn't need his pride. I had my own, and I taught my children something far greater. That strength isn't in what you take, it's in what you protect. That love isn't measured in promises, but in presence. That silence isn't weakness, it's preparation. Jason took the car. He thought that was the end. But I took the house. I took the dog. I took the kids. And with them, I took back myself. And in doing so, I won without ever needing to say it. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat down at the kitchen table with a pen and a blank notebook. Not a court document, not a legal form. Just paper. For me, I started writing not about Jason, but about everything I reclaimed. My peace. My dignity. My voice. I made a list of every small win. The night I learned how to fix the dishwasher by watching a 7-minute video. The morning I parallel parked like a boss while my daughter cheered in the back seat. The day Max barked at the mailman again, his spirit fully returned. None of it made the news. None of it came with medals. But they were victories. Tiny, silent revolutions that built a woman from the ashes. And with every word I wrote, I felt more whole. I no longer needed to explain what happened. I no longer felt the urge to justify why I stayed, or why I fought, or why I let go. Because healing doesn't need approval. It only needs truth. And my truth was unstoppable. One morning, months later, my son brought home a drawing from school. It was our house. Our dog. A woman with long hair and tired eyes. And 3 hearts above her head. I asked, "Who's this?" He looked at me and smiled. "You, Mommy, you're the heart of everything." I turned away so he wouldn't see my tears. Not because I was sad, but because I was seen, truly seen. All along, I thought I was just surviving. But they saw me as thriving. They saw the power, the steadiness, the love, and that was worth every night I cried alone. Every paper I filed, every call I didn't answer, every silence I let stretch. Jason took the car thinking he drove away with control, but what he really left behind was freedom. And now I drive wherever I want. Not just on roads. In life, with my children, with my peace, with my power. And no matter how far I go, I'll never look back. 'Cause I've already won. And my victory, it's quiet, but it echoes forever.